And you will know my name is the Lord. And I'm walking here. I'm walking here.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Groovy.
Welcome, everyone, to Box Office Pulp, your one-stop podcast for movies, madness, and moxie. I'm your host, Cody. Joining me today is my co-host, Mike. Say hello, Mike.
Do you think Ghostface ever, if he's like gets caught in the rain while wearing the full costume, it gets really wet and then tangled up, and he has a really hard time moving?
It's really sad because you realize how small and skinny the person is underneath the costume, and then they've got the big old mask on top. So it's more sad than scary.
Oh God, yeah, because
It's like a cat. It's like a cat when you give a cat a bath. You know, you realize like, oh, this thing is 7 pounds. It's all floof.
Oh, it reminds me of the animators. I think it was the animators on Clerks the series. When it came to drawing Silent Bob, they said they like had on the character sheet like beneath the coat, he's nothing but a tube.
Is this a long shot way of connecting us back to Scream 3?
Ah, God damn it.
Gotcha, bitch! Folks, if you haven't figured it out, today we're here to talk about one of my favorite franchises. More specifically, though, not the entire franchise of Scream, but Scream 5 is what I'm going to be calling it, because the official title is just Scream, and I don't like it when legacy sequels just take the original movie and then use the same name, but they're in the same chronology. It drives me nuts. So we're calling this a Scream 5 gut review.
It really should just be called Scream 5, or subtitles exist, Hollywood. You can use subtitles.
I have a point about this. One, spoilers. If folks haven't seen Scream 5, please leave. We are going to be spoiling everything. Everything is fair game in this podcast. So
Yeah.
if you haven't seen it yet and you intend to watch it or you care about spoilers, please go. This is like the one movie franchise where I get up in arms about any sort of spoiler. So this is me being kind and gracious. Please go.
And it's impossible to talk about a Scream movie without hardcore spoilers, and Scream
can't.
is like the spoiler franchise. It's about spoilers.
Yeah.
So yeah. You
It's like,
just
get the fuck out. Go.
Yeah, leave.
Shoot. Get out.
Leave.
Shoot.
Go away.
But we don't need you anymore, old Yeller.
Or you didn't see Scream, we don't want to be your friends.
I said old Yeller. I should have said Shane. Wasn't it Shane? The one where like he yells at the kid to get out of whatever. Anyways, to go back
Either
to
or.
the idea of Scream as the title. Thematically, this is like the one time where it makes perfect sense that it's still Scream, because they're doing a commentary on the fact that it's a reboot sequel. A requel, as they use. A term I don't like, but will probably live forever now that it's been popularized in a very famous movie.
Yeah, we're just gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah.
At least it's
A requel. It doesn't flow off the tongue well. It sounds wrong, right?
It sounds like some kind of venereal disease, but it at least
burns.
is a short way of saying
It gets the
it,
point
you know.
across. It
Yeah.
works. I understand what they're going for. It's not completely inappropriate. It just, to me, it sounds dumb. Just call it a fucking legacy sequel. That's what I've always said, and I've liked that one. That's been my baby term.
And yeah, I prefer that, but and I do agree in regards to the title. My problem is that it does make all the sense in the world and is perfect, but only after you see the movie.
That is true. Like, you actually have to experience the film before you're like, oh, that's why they didn't fucking put a number there.
And at the end of the day, when you have your box set on your fucking shelf, it's going to go Scream, Scream 2, Scream 3, Scream 4, Scream.
More personal question. Mike, how do you organize the Candyman films in your collection?
Oof. See, this is why I'm chaotic. I just do alphabetical order. So
Oh, so you've got Candyman, Candyman Day of the Dead, Candyman Farewell to the Flesh. That's awful. I hate it.
it's not
I
good.
couldn't, if I went to your house and I saw that, I would just start flipping things in your house. Your mother, your couch, your cat. I don't care. I'd be like, oh, it's wrong. The cat was laying back on his feet, so it's fine.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I will say, occasionally, if it is a franchise where where it's going to be all fucked up, I will eschew the rules.
So like the Fast and the Furious movies, fuck you. They're all numbered in my mind.
I only own the first one.
Oh, okay. Well, the Final Destinations?
I don't own any of them.
Wow, that one's more surprising to me.
I'm not a huge Final Destination fan. They're fun, but I'm not like, ooh, Final Destination.
There's something about, and I promise we'll get back to Scream in a second, folks. There's something about Final Destination 2 that to me just makes it like the ultimate movie. I wouldn't
Okay, I buy that
say
now.
Final Destination 2 is particularly well made or thematically rich or anything, but there's something about that where it's a pure experience. You put on Final Destination 2 with 5 people, and they're all going to be acting as if they're on a fucking wooden roller coaster on Coney Island. Like, everyone is just
Oh, yeah.
enthralled by the set pieces of that film. The step ladder, or not the step ladder, the fire escape ladder going through the guy's eye, the glass plate crushing that one kid, the opening with the logs. Fucking Final Destination 2 is a trip. Like, that is the purest form of movie entertainment I think you can possibly make.
Oh, they're group watch movies. They're total like carnival movies.
For
Like,
sure.
that's what they are.
Especially
like,
in 3 when they go to a
super fun.
carnival.
Yeah. See, they know.
They know. They're on it.
They know.
But Scream. Let's go back to Scream.
Scream.
I have one confession I need to make to out myself as a dipshit. I thought somehow, I don't know why I got this in my head, that Adam Brody and Jack Quaid were related, like brothers or something. I just thought they were the same family bloodline or something. They looked too similar to me to not be related. And it was only by going on the internet recently I realized these are very different men who are about 20 years different in age.
Okay, I didn't know they were that different in age, but
It's not that far. Adam Brody is like 42 and Quaid is like 29.
That's okay. But really? 42. God, where's time go?
Scream 4 came out like 10 years ago, man. It fucking freaks me out.
No,
We're talking about Scream 2022 anyways.
20 years. I am 20 years old. I don't know what anybody's fucking talking about.
Time stopped when I matured. Anyways, it was one of I thought it was like an in joke. I thought it was like, oh, okay, well, the Radio Silence guys work with like Adam Brody and Jack Quaid, their family. They look the same. One was in 4, one's in 5. Oh, it's a neat meta touch. No, I'm just an idiot. They're not related in the slightest.
They do look exactly the same.
They look kind of like
100% with
slightly stepped clones, right? Like one got out of the vat a little earlier. It's long. Okay, fuck it. Let's just go to the ending. As long as we're talking Quaids and Brodies.
No structure to this episode at all.
None. Fuck you. We're going to the end of the show. The ending. The ending's the most important part to me in a Scream movie, right? Everyone is there for the reveals. It's the mystery that's exciting. And in this one, we really, in my mind, the whole movie is kind of a retread of 4. Not in a negative way. I should say I really love Scream 5. I can't wait to own it on Blu-ray. I can rewatch it. I think there's a lot going on with this movie. It's very good. I have a lot of nitpicks, and I want to stress that they are nitpicks. There are things me being bitchy about because this is my favorite franchise, so I look at everything under a microscope. This is a great movie. I think everyone should see it in theaters. They should bring their friends, have it as a movie party watch night. You're going to have a good time. Even if you're not fluent in Scream 1, I think you'll still have a lot of enjoyment in it. It's going to be better if you know the Scream franchise, but I think this could operate as a new start.
Yeah, I think so.
All that said, the ending is one of my, like, I have some issues kind of point, because we get to the end and it's revealed there are 2 killers, but they do it in a fun way where it's stretched out, where we see the first killer literally pulls out a gun and shoots one of the other survivors in the head at a party, which is essentially what Billy does to Randy in Scream 1. Only we immediately find out Stu is the other killer. He walks in with a voice changer as Neve is trying to like cling to him for comfort. So her whole world is destroyed at one time. In this movie, we have a gap, right? So we have our first killer. She's the, I don't know why I'm trying to be vague. Like, we didn't announce there were going to be 1,000 spoilers. Amber Freeman, like, she reveals herself, I'm the killer, and she blows away one of the other actresses. I can't remember her name. I'm shitty at podcasting.
She's like in 4 scenes, so it's not
she is like supposed to be the red herring that no one actually believes is a red herring because it'd be such a bad choice.
You peg. I'm sorry. You peg Amber as one of the killers super early on.
Super early. And that's fine. Scream is one of those things where it's like, is it too obvious to be obvious? And you kind of you work through it that way. It's the second killer, I think, is the fun one, because that's the one where you're like, oh, that's the surprise guy. You got me. And in this case, it's Jack Quaid. So his character, Richie, is hiding in a room. He gets shot by Sidney.
That was great. That really throws you off.
Fucking Sidney just shooting every door like, motherfucker on the other side, better watch out. Like, finally, she's like done enough of these where it's like, nope, not taking a chance. Don't care if it's someone innocent on the other side of the door. Bang, bang, bang. And she pegs him. It's fantastic. It really is very funny. And Jack Quaid at this point is still like playing innocent. And it's only later on when they capture Ghostface that he reveals himself as the other killer. And it's supposed to kind of be like a treat or a trick, depending on how you look at it, that there's still two killers. Because they make it feel like maybe there's a third, because we already know Amber is the first killer. And then there's a person in a mask, and you think, oh, there could be a second. And then Jack Quaid reveals himself as a killer. So you think there could be three, which would be mind-breaking. That's a new thing for Scream. Then it turns out it's just Amber somehow, for some reason, went back into costume, even though everyone knows she's the killer. And then Richie makes his move. I keep saying Jack Quaid and then Richie. I'm going to have to settle on one of these.
It's fun to say Jack Quaid.
It's fun to say Jack. You're right. So we have Richie and Amber as the two killers. I'm torn. I think Richie makes perfect sense. That's a really great killer because you have the connection to our new lead, right? Like he's got a little bit of personal business with Tara and oh god, I was gonna say Sarah. Is it Sarah? Have I forgotten? Sam. I'm an idiot. Sam and Tara.
They're all white people names. It's really hard to keep track.
The names are a separate issue. I'm very annoyed that there's Carpenters and there's Wesses and stuff. It's like, we all appreciate having the reference to other horror franchises and horror iconography, but at this point, we don't need anything explicitly called Carpenters anymore, right?
No, I didn't mind it in this so much, both because it's, even though Scream's already done it, and the West thing, of course, was done for a very specific reason. But after this, we can lay off for a very long time. Or if you're at least going to do it, do different ones. Like, throw a Barker in there. Just
anybody. Give me a Raimi. Give me a Raimi. Yeah,
give me a Raimi, yes.
Give me a Raimi. Anyways, I mean, we're doing it for modern day horror too, right? So, like, if I can just pick some modern day horror people that are famous, that's fine. Yeah.
Get a Peele in there.
That'd be fun. That'd be cool. That would be a lot better, I think. Anyways, the thing that bothers me about that is because in the original Scream, someone makes a comment, oh, it's like a Wes Carpenter flick. And now that we have characters with the first name Wes and characters with the last name Carpenter, it feels a little too on the nose.
A little bit, yeah. It's a very common name in that universe.
Yeah, I know. That's such a nitpick, but it bothers me. And especially, these are going to be our main characters moving forward, we have to assume, right? It's going to be Sam and Tara Carpenter moving forward.
Yeah.
And now we're just stuck with fucking Carpenters. Like, god damn it. We get it. The original movie really liked fucking Halloween. Okay. Sorry.
Going with Carpenter as like a main character moving forward is kind of weird. I would just prefer it if they just, even though it's a good name, but I would have preferred,
John Carpenter's writing you a nasty note right now. Like, how dare you?
It makes the West thing, not that it makes it less special, but that's a kind of a different thing as to why that character was named Wes.
That's supposed to be an ode. I would say,
if you're going to do that, I don't want other characters having directors' names because it kind of sullies the West thing a little bit.
This is a little weird to me. I don't know. Was it weird to you that they were like, okay, Dylan Minnette, you're going to be Wes Hicks in honor of Wes Craven, the originator of the franchise? Well, it's technically Williamson, but whatever, the director of the franchise. We're also going to kill you and your mom. Is it a little weird to like name someone after the director and then murder them halfway through the film?
It's a little odd, but when you stop and think like, but it's an ode of Wes Craven, it makes sense.
Yeah, it doesn't stop me in my tracks too much, but it's like, is this in poor taste? I don't know. Moving on.
I don't think it's in poor taste because Craven would be into it.
The filmmakers clearly love Wes Craven. I mean, the movie ends, the first credit is for Wes. They love the guy. It's no surprise. So it's not like they're doing him dirty. It's just, it feels very weird to me as an audience member who is being told, hey, be hyper aware of everything on a meta level. It's a Scream movie.
And we murder Wes.
And then we murder Wes. We'll get back to that. I want to go back to what we're talking about, the ending killers, because that's the exciting part to me.
Yeah.
Richie, I think, like I said, he makes a great killer, a good surprise. But for the accomplice, this is where things get a little hairy for me, because Amber seems obvious enough where it's like, oh, no, duh, it's Amber. Like, there's not much of a surprise at any point there. She just gives off the vibes like, I'm definitely going to be the number 2 killer.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things that are said. The fact that it's not really, Scream 5 is not really an ensemble picture so much. So all of the side characters being like pushed to the back a little bit makes things like Amber stand out more as obvious.
Right.
It's not in very opposite way of like, you didn't really peg Stu as one of the killers because he just seemed like the goofy friend, but he was still like balanced in there enough. Amber has too much to do, but isn't in the movie enough. So
yeah, that's the easy way to get suspicion off your characters. Just don't have them in every scene. And in this one too, this is my main problem, like the one sticking point, and maybe this is just fanboy bullshit. But Amber is the one to kill Dewey, which weirds me out because it's one of those things where as you're watching it, you have to pay attention to height differences because I'm guessing she's not the same height as Dewey. That's one of those things I get frustrated on, where it's like where you have Emma Roberts play one of the killers, like you're a very short woman. Like logistically, I don't think you quite match up to the height of the killer in all the scenes because they never have the suspected characters actually play Ghostface, right? Maybe for like one scene.
Yeah, barely. I mean, God, I adore Scream 4, but I don't believe either of those characters would have killed anyone.
They pick tiny looking children. It's just how it is. So there's a lot of suspension of disbelief that goes there. Whereas you almost have that problem in Scream 1 too, because Stu is fucking gigantic. Stu is a very tall person compared to everybody else, and Billy is roughly the same size as everyone else, a little taller. Although that one's a little funny. So the story goes, the only time that Skeet Ulrich wore the killer costume was in the Mocker House attack at the end. He's the one who comes up behind Randy with a knife and then doesn't actually make the move to stab Randy. That's the one time in Scream 1, one of the killers actually wore the costume. Otherwise, it's one of the stuntmen. In this movie, it's actually very similar. So when we have, the bloodbath at the final scene at Stu's house, once again, as Mindy's on the couch, it's, I believe, Jack Quaid comes up in the Scream costume to stab her. So we kind of get a little bit of a repetition there. But that was like the one time he's in costume, just for like one brief moment.
I'll say, I think the one big thing I like about the Richie reveal, too, is I feel like this is like the one Scream sequel that does a really good job of being meta towards the characters learning the rules of a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
So pegging Richie immediately on Dewey's part, and
it's
then
nice
doing that
Dewey...
then doing that long drawn out not reveal after Amber. To me, that's brilliant.
That was nice. I do appreciate that, even though they killed off Dewey in this movie, which is a little bit of a bummer because Dewey's supposed to be the bulletproof one of them all.
Yeah.
We kill off Dewey, but he gets to be right. Like, first crack, he's like, okay, I think it's the fucking boyfriend. And then he says some unrelated stuff where at the time we're like, well, that's stupid. Dewey's like, it's the boyfriend. Also, it could be one of your friends. It's probably her. And it just kind of makes you feel like, Dewey, it has to be one or the other. You can't just say, like, both groups are the killer. But no, in retrospect, he's completely right. It was Amber and it was fucking Richie. He nailed it. I like that they give that little bit of credence to the character. There's that respect level to it, which is probably why most legacy fans of Scream aren't freaking out that they killed one of the trio.
Yeah.
We went through 4 movies with what we thought unassailable trio of Sidney Prescott, Dewey, and Gale. We thought those 3 just couldn't die, which is boring filmmaking when you have all 3 in there and they can't get hurt. This movie throws us off by killing off Dewey, which sucks, but as a Scream fan, you've seen it happen with Randy. It's like, this should happen more often, honestly. Like, you kind of have to have your heart broken by these movies for them to be effective.
Yeah. You knew it was going to happen eventually.
As soon as he got to the hospital, I'm like, oh, it's over. I didn't see anything else from Dewey in the trailers.
Yeah. But it just comes down to to how it's done appropriately. And this was very appropriate. And appropriate for Dewey, too, not just in, your appropriate way for a legacy character to go out, but specifically for Dewey. Like, just giving him this little bit of an arc. And kind of
it's nice he goes back, he gets to be the hero, he remembers, it's the head, because after that whole fucking joke of 2 and 3, where it's like, oh, right, if it's not a headshot, it doesn't count.
Yeah.
That's nice. I like that. It's kind of funny, too, that he goes out a little bit as a doof because he gets distracted by his phone going off. That one thing you shouldn't care about when he's about to fucking ice a killer.
Well, it's very Dewey, though.
That's why everyone complains, like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. Dewey is not the brightest crayon in the box.
And I just like him having this Robert Mitchum and El Dorado kind of fucking storyline. But it also plays a little bit with... Because Dewey was supposed to die in the original film.
Yeah. He's been living on borrowed time, baby.
He's been living on borrowed time, but he's also a character who doesn't really fit into a traditional trope the way everybody else does. So him being kind of like this outlier who's managed to continually survive and has like a specific set of knowledge and almost his own rule base as a character in a slasher film has been really interesting and is kind of used to a greater effect here with him coming in to like be the expert. Like he's not coming in to be the survivor girl in the way that Sydney is, or even Gale.
He
Like
gets assigned the Randy role very
Yeah.
early in the movie, and it's like that. Ooh, bold choice. I would not have done that. Which is great. It's unexpected, but it makes sense because he has the experience. He's a police officer. Like he should have some fucking experience in these investigations. So it's fun. It's a clever twist because again, I never would have written Dewey that way.
And I also like the added little bit of business of him going like, yeah, with the breakup between me and Gale was my fault.
It's nice. There's a self-loathing there. It's a bit of a bummer because Dewey, even in 4, where he's like on the verge of divorce with Gale, is incredibly optimistic. Like there's a moment where he's talking to Sydney and he says something like, "Hey, when things are at their worst, sometimes they get better." There's no reason why he would say that other than he's just so optimistic. He just believes, "Hey, man, things suck, but hey, this is probably rock bottom. Things got to get better." So it's very sad in this movie that we see a Dewey that has dropped that level of optimism that he's had in all the other films. Like he's finally been broken enough where he's just not feeling it. On the other hand, I don't think that's a bad thing.
No.
The worst thing you can do with a legacy character is leave them in hyperstasis for like 20 years in between movies. What if you come back to a Star Wars film and Luke Skywalker is exactly as you left him at Return of the Jedi? Isn't that...
You're on Twitter. That's your answer.
Yeah, it's kind of like fucked up. I would say I'm a different person from 10 years ago. Is that better or worse? I don't know. But if you just leave a character exactly the same, like they stopped evolving after their last adventure we saw, that's kind of terrifying and sad to me. That's one of the like hooks of fucking Star Wars Episode 7, right? Han Solo is exactly the guy he was when we left him. Apparently, he's kind of reverted to like Episode 4 form, and it makes sense that character has to die because he's just not living anymore. I don't like it when they bring in legacy characters and they're like, "Hey, you loved them the way they were. Here they are, 20 years later," and it's just an old guy in a costume they don't fit anymore, just pretending to be them as a kid. This version of Dewey has grown and changed, not necessarily in good ways. But he's a different character, and I love that they let him evolve. And that's awful for the character, great for the audience. I think that's the way you get people to give a shit about a legacy character. You've got to let these characters grow.
Yeah, I don't want to see them frozen in amber until they're brought back for a legacy sequel. I want to see them. I want to see that the world kept going past the last time you saw them. They actually lived lives, because that's the
fun of Star Wars, right? Because there's a whole expanded universe, like you just mentioned. Oh, that's why he's that way. He had fucking 20 years of misadventures I didn't know about. Same with Scream. Like he maybe didn't fight more Ghostface, but he had other shit in his life. And I like that too, because they have all the other characters doing stuff. Like in between 4 and 5, that 10-year gap, Sydney apparently went back and married the police officer from 3, and then they had 2 kids. So like, oh, that's a whole life.
She could have done better.
Oh man, I don't know. Patrick Dempsey? He's a dreamboat.
I do like Loverboy, but yeah, and I like even with Gale and Sydney, because their importance isn't as grand as a Scream 4 was. This does not feel like their life, which obviously Dewey dying brought a lot of extras, is what brought stakes to it, and I really enjoyed that, because it's not, hey, there's a new Ghostface killer, so Sydney, Gale, come forth and rejoin the plots.
Right, you're safely living in like another state. Fly in here and possibly get murdered.
Yeah, and I appreciate the fact that this isn't their life. Like they don't just fight slasher killers all the goddamn time, especially for Sydney. And that's why I know everyone was like, "Oh, I bet you think Sydney's gonna die? You think Sydney's gonna die?" I would say the biggest mistake the Scream series can make is killing Sydney, because no matter how you do it, it will be for shock value.
It won't be good.
No.
The whole fun of Scream is seeing essentially a survivor of abuse or just terrible circumstance overcome things and live a normal life. Like Sydney's been through the ringer more than any other person could ever expect. And I enjoyed that Scream 5. It's like, yeah, no, and she has kids, she has a family, pretty happy life. Everything worked out.
She's good. She would not have shown up if Dewey didn't die.
Right. And to make a Scream movie where she gets killed off just kind of goes back and all that, be like, whatever, fuck her. It's like,
I mean, fuck.
It's a little boring to have a character that's immortal compared to the other ones, but boy, it would be wrong in my mind to ever kill that character off. I would much rather her just not show up to a Scream movie than to kill Sydney off for any of them.
There's no story with her dying. There's a story with Dewey dying. There's no story with Sydney dying.
You maybe arguably could have done it early in the franchise. Like, 1 obviously is 1. Let's not argue that. But 2, the original plan,
2
Kevin
would have been the
Williamson
time.
had this idea where Cotton might have been the killer, and Sydney and him end the movie by stabbing each other to death, essentially, in the stage play that she's been working on. It's almost a cliffhanger, though, because they like end the movie on a blackout screen as she's being stabbed, or like succumbing to her wounds. So it's like they could still save her for a 3 if they wanted to. That would have been the time. That's the only time I would have been like, maybe, sure, because they're trying to do a bigger sequel. How do you do a bigger sequel? You kill off the unimpeachable heroine of the first film.
Yeah.
That was the only time. After that, it's like, nope, she's fucking horror royalty. I would be very upset if they kill her character off. You
I
can
would
kill off
actually-
Gale, you can kill off
Yeah.
pretty much anyone else, but not her.
I would like to see it going forward if there's another Scream movie, which let's face it, there is. This makes all the money in the world.
This one did great. It's what, within 10 days it bypassed the entire budget, or I'm sorry, the entire box office of Scream 4.
Fucking mind blowing.
In the
I'm just gonna
pandemic
say,
against
thanks,
Spider-Man.
Halloween, the Halloween reboots.
Whew. We're doing numbers now. I love this. We can have slashers again. This is cool.
Yeah, more original slashers now. But I would like Sydney not to return.
I'd be okay with that too. I think, okay, so in my mind, the way to do a Scream 6, just spitballing one, you fucking slam immediately into Scream 6, like seconds after Sydney is driving out of town at the end of the Scream 5 credits. Like, you have a new Ghostface appear out of nowhere and attack like the fucking ambulance taking Tara back to the hospital, and then you just do it at a mad pace sprint. And you do the entire movie basically set over like a night and a half or something, where Sydney's already left town, isn't answering her phone because no one thinks to call her back up because she's driving away. You can still have Gale at that point because she's injured, and you just use that as a legacy character, and you move on. You have the new characters, her friends that are coming to visit her in the hospital, whatever, the surviving members of this movie, all have to deal with another threat immediately in the aftermath of the first movie. Kind of the Halloween 2 idea,
Yeah.
if that movie wasn't
No empty hospitals. We already got an empty hospital here. We don't need
People
another
complain
empty
about that. Like, I saw a review making fun of the fact that, like, apparently no one's in this hospital. It's like, in the dialogue, they clearly state they moved her to an an empty floor
Yeah.
for her safety.
They at least
Yeah.
cover their ass. I mean, I don't really care.
That's
that
it. I don't
much.
think it's great screenwriting.
It's just like,
but
as
it's
long as
something
you
they
cover your
cover.
ass, I don't care.
Right, yeah, they put in terms. Like, they like, hey, fucking shut up. Okay, we thought about this too.
It's like, why does the cell phone not work? Oh, there's no signal. That's all I want. I don't care if
Yeah.
it makes no sense.
It's a little cheap, but it's like, okay, at least they mentioned it.
Yeah, I just want to know they're aware. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't care beyond that. It's a fake movie.
So I saw that complaint. I'm just like, I am immediately annoyed at this review. And of course, I was reading it, and everyone he mentions, like this reviewer, was talking shit about any horror film. Like, he mentions really enjoying Last Night in Soho before it turns into a horror movie at the end. It's like, well, fuck you. What do you want?
Was it a Guardian review?
It should have been the way it read. Fuck. This is like local newspaper shit.
Ah,
Man, we've been talking for about 30 minutes so far, and I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface. There's
Jesus, no.
a lot to enjoy in this movie. I'm gonna I'm gonna pull back a little bit. We can go some more generic details. So I more or less enjoyed the way the killers are revealed at the end. I really enjoy the kills. They're very graphic. Ghostface's whole thing is he's very dedicated to stabbing with a knife, right? He doesn't ever pull out like a machine gun. He doesn't have a weed whacker. The most you get out of him is maybe he kills you with a garage door, right? I like how they still made the kills in this one seem varied and intense enough where you weren't distracted by the fact that he is very dedicated to the idea of being solely a slasher. Like Kyle Gallner, when he kills him just by stabbing him quick in the throat and letting
Ooh,
him
love
bleed
that.
out.
Love
That's
it.
great. That was unexpected because normally Ghostface fucking toys with a person, and this guy he just mops the floor with as quick as possible. You get like the car startup thing, and the red right hand playing, which wonderful touch. But he doesn't go out his way to attack and torture this guy for like 20 minutes or tease him with like, "What's your favorite scare?" He just stabs him right in the throat. Like he appears behind him and ka-cha. That was a
Yeah.
fun, weird, exciting twist.
There's no great
that-
meaning behind that. Just they needed an extra body.
That was it. They're like, oh, he's related to the original killings, whatever. By blood. He's like Stu's cousin or something. Nephew, I don't know. I think cousin. Shows how much attention I was paying.
It's a pointless character, but we don't need to even get into that.
We'll pass it. Then you have the other parts where like he's killing Wes, and he already kills his mom by toying with her in traditional Ghostface manner. And we have all the fake outs where, a closet closes and he's not there. The refrigerator door closes and Ghostface isn't there. all those jumps, there's so much tension built into those. I'm a little disappointed that in the end, Ghostface just appears behind the character, because it was fun playing that cat and mouse game of, is he going to jump out from behind that door? No. That one? No. That one? Also no. He's not going to do the cheap horror movie cliche of just being hidden behind a door where the character's peripheral vision should expose him.
And see, that's why I absolutely loved that. And then he's just behind him the entire time. Like I love
it
that.
Feels
so
anticlimactic. I get it thematically. It makes a certain amount of sense, but it's like, he's just there. I don't need to be scared anymore because he'll just be behind the character.
And one thing I really liked about the knife kills is they got, like, Radio Silence got the infallibility of Ghostface, because while they did, they shot Ghostface like he is monumental plenty of times. Radio Silence can just direct a paper bag in the most glorious way, but Ghostface is still falling over a little bit. He's still a little bit, he's still not that competent because these are still just fucking dumbasses. And also, everyone is able to hold back the knife. Like, killing someone with a knife is not that fucking easy.
Right. That's one of the problems I had with Dewey fucking biting it in the hospital, because, like, there's a 5'6" girl. 6 is being very generous. I actually don't know her height. It just seems like if someone were to stab you with 2 knives and gut you, essentially, it feels like, boy, they got to have some, like, bodybuilding experience going on. Like, I need someone who looks a little more jacked.
I've dated goth girls. Let me tell you, that is very realistic.
I'll chalk that up to a lack of life experience on my part, then. But that's one of the best parts about Ghostface, right? He is so fucking human and clumsy. You compare him even to Michael Myers in Halloween Kills, minor spoilers, when Michael is at his most vulnerable, like he's had his mask removed, he's spent a whole night just getting, like, beaten and stabbed and stuff and having his fingers blown off, and an entire mob beats him up, he still doesn't look like a pathetic old man. Like, he gets back up and then murders everyone. The shape is monumental. He's just a fucking living robot statue. You can't beat Michael Myers. Ghostface, in, like, the opening scene when he has all the power, still gets fucking knocked on his ass. He falls down and, like, fucking clocks his throat on a granite countertop. Ghostface looks like he's about to die in every scene that he shows up. It's wonderful, and that's the way it should be. Someone should always be dunking on Ghostface with a flower vase before he somehow gets the upper hand and stabs you, because in a knife fight, the guy with the knife is probably gonna win. Just, it's not fair.
And that's why I really like the added little bit. I mean, obviously it plays into, like, what the characters are that Amber puts the costume back on, but because she's kind of like, she's into it, she's kind of cosplaying. It's just part of the role. Like, and I really like that.
Mike, it makes it sound like she's getting off in the middle of this, which she might be, I guess.
Did you watch the performance? She totally is. But also it just adds this extra goofiness to Ghostface, like when she's wearing the costume, like puts it back on to, like, play Ghostface at the end, just kind of cosplaying. I love the breakdown of Ghostface as this figure in, like, slasher movies.
I love the one-upsmanship of the ending too, because Scream has always been fairly violent, right? But in this one, it's not just someone getting blasted 3 times with a gun that kills them. Fucking, oh, man. Richie gets stabbed about 40 times at the end before going, what about my ending? And then getting slashed in the throat. It's fucking way over the top. And I kind of appreciate, like, if your whole meta point is this has to be the original but bigger, that's definitely it. You've made it. And Amber, she doesn't get a TV thrown on her head and just, that's the end. She gets shot multiple times. She gets thrown onto an oven. She's lit on fire before she's shot several more times.
The oven fucking thing just destroyed me. I love that so much.
Turns into, like, that grilled cheese sandwich you tried to make when you forgot to grease the skillet and everything got too burnt. It's just, oh, man, so big. It's such a giant swing. That's the stuff I love.
Yeah.
And that doesn't even
be a little bit ridiculous here and there.
Yeah, well, and you get that too in the allusions to Scream 8, which we see there's a Ghostface who wears, like, cut off black shirts to show off his muscles, and has a flamethrower and a chrome mask.
Dude, bro, Ghostface.
Dude, bro, Ghostface. Apparently, the thing that was so heinous that it set off these 2 killers, and they had to redeem the worth of the Scream and Stab franchise.
Because
I also love that because
was woke.
Stab, I'm trying to think from Scream 4, because they mentioned Stab 6 and 7, I believe, in that one, are admittedly not great. The characters say they're not great. They say 5 has time travel, if I'm remembering right.
I believe
So-
so, yeah.
So it's like basically the first 3 are based on a real thing. You know, they're a trilogy, everyone thinks of them as, but the in-movie characters recognize that 4, 5, 6, and 7 are trash, and everyone thinks 8 is even worse. So these characters, representing the worst fanboys that you can imagine, are murdering tons of people because someone went that extra step and just said, what if we reboot this horrible franchise that sucks? I love that little touch.
It's such a perfect toxic fan commentary, which is something I didn't even expect Scream to like go into. Because my entire thing with the new Scream was just wondering what the fuck allegory are they going with this time? There's just a lot of different places. Obviously, the requel thing was, but that's surface level.
Yeah.
You know, that's like Scream 3 going like, it's a trilogy ender, and that's literally all they had going for it.
We're on part 3, just it's a trilogy.
Yeah. But what's this what is the actual satire going on? Because fucking Radio Silence knows that it's can't just be it's a slasher movie. They're smart. So what are they gonna say? So that reveal fucking just that sold the movie. Like, I was already loving the movie, but that sold it completely as like, this is now one of my favorite Scream movies. Because it's such an unexpected place to go, and it's such a great unexpected allegory. Because no one really wants to talk about the toxic fan base that much in such
I think
a
they're a
blatant
part of
way.
it. No one thinks they're a toxic fan.
Yeah, exactly. And
The Snyder Bros all think, hey, we're defending a director who had a hard time, who just wanted to present his vision. Meanwhile, everybody else is like, please shut the fuck up. Quit fucking
please
shut
stop,
the fuck up.
please stop
Star Wars
bullying
fans shouldn't be allowed to be alive. I liked Star Wars as a kid, so someone should shoot me. I'm part of this now. We're all bad people.
all of us. We all suck. We're doing a movie podcast right now, but
We're not immune from this. We're shitty people in different ways.
I never expected that the toxic fandom would play into a slasher allegory so well. Because
About the fans.
yeah, it's like, oh, because their way of actually making their own thing to wrestle it back from control of these other people who make it too woke or take it in different directions, or where they just want it to stay in amber and be the exact same, the thing they want because of this very specific experience they had many years ago. I mean, it's kind of called out. So they literally just start killing people. They're to recreate it in real life, so that way there's a new story that the new one can be based on that is just stab again. Like, that's
Right.
yeah,
We want it
that's
the way it
that's toxic
was.
fans.
We want it to be pure. And we love it so much we're actually going to kill the people involved in this because they don't know it as well as us, right? The idea that they have to be like, it's an honor before killing Dewey. Because to them, it's like, this is the greatest man in the world. I have to murder him because I can control this franchise better than him. You know, it's the audacity of, like, if I walked up to fucking Kevin Williamson and beat him to death with a toilet bowl because it's like, he doesn't understand. The fucking Vampire Diaries, that's me. I know them.
Why a toilet?
I don't know. I was reaching for a weapon in mind. That was the first one I came to. But it's that idea. And I love it too, the added irony that fans have embraced this movie so much that it's made like $80 million after not even 2 weeks or something. You know, it's one of the most successful Screams. And it's a movie that's basically saying like, hey, the old time fans that cling to the series fucking suck.
It's a specific kind of fan, though. But
That's true. Yeah.
what's-
But
but
the
what's
fact that you
funny
don't see a
is-
lot of complaints online from people being like, I don't know, it's kind of dumb they made fun of fanboys. You know, like,
because no
everyone
one
thinks
sees
they're on the right side.
themselves. No toxic Star Wars fan knows the difference between them and a normal fan. they don't see it.
As long as we're on this, I just want to mention too, the thing I love. The original Scream, it's the first of the franchise, so they don't have Scream as a reference point. The whole first Scream is essentially directed at Halloween and the movies that followed immediately after Halloween. We even have it to the point where Dewey walks through Stu's house as Halloween is playing, making him kind of feel like he's interacting with the film itself. But by the time we get to Scream 2, they introduce the idea of stab, and now the original movie is being remade within the movie, and so now all of the Scream movies are retroactively referencing themselves. So Scream 2 is talking about Scream 1, Scream 3 is talking about 2 and 1. Scream 4 is talking about Scream 1 again. Scream 5 goes into that idea that No, this whole franchise is no longer talking about horror trends in general. It's not like the rules for horror. It's talking about the rules for Scream, the rules for meta. It's taking the idea of a metatextual reference about an entire genre and narrowing it down even further, refining it to this is a metatextual reference to the previous text, like the existing text that makes up the current sentences that we're reading, which is kind of brilliant considering this is a reboot sequel.
Yeah.
So this idea, the words are still going onto the page and we're retroactively trying to adjust how the story ends based on where we started and knowing how it started. It's that awareness that's become so hypercritical that it's laser focused on only itself, which is self-destructive. And you get that in the villains. The villains are driving the plot because it's stupid to only look at one fucking movie if you're basing your entire opinion of horror off of one thing. It's really neat. I need to see this movie about 18 more times and start taking notes and making diagrams with straws like I'm in Looper, because I think there's so much to be said about the way this film is interrogating the idea of rebooting and sequelizing a film at the same time and only living within that one small sphere of influence.
Yeah.
I think it's really brilliant, and there's a lot going on besides characters just getting stabbed.
There's a lot of layers, a lot of breakdown of the meaning of nostalgia too, and I think it even works better when you pair it with Scream 4, which was another
I would say a first
kind of
stab
fan story. But
at the idea.
yeah, but
Stab 4, oh, sorry, I'm not saying Stab 4. Scream 4, I would say is almost more cynical about the idea. It goes,
very, yeah.
fucking Sid walks out at the end and says, don't fuck with the original, and then kills her replacement killer, her essential reboot token. In this movie, it ends with Sid's reboot token walking out and going, it means so much to me that you were here. Like, it ends on a total note of respect. I would say the respect is too far where it gets obnoxious. I was like, if I can cut this shit out. But it ends from a place of respect, as in saying, okay, if you can't destroy the original, you better fucking work with the original, or else the fans are never going to accept it. And lo and behold, they did, and the fans loved it. Craven made a movie where he basically said, no, there's no working with this. I don't want to reboot because it's going to fucking sully what I did first. It won't be as good. And the fans rejected it. I'm not saying Craven was wrong. I'm just saying it's really, boy, you got to either get on terms with the first film or you just got to walk away, because that's the only way fans are going to go say, yes, I want more of this.
Saying all that, before we wind down, I don't like the hero characters openly using the term elevated horror.
No.
I don't understand. Radio Silence knows they're on they're on social media. They know the fan base. They know that elevated horror isn't an actual horror fan term or notion and is bullshit. So I don't really understand why that was being bandied about.
And yeah, it's the fact that it's the hero characters talking about elevated horror. Well, specifically Tara. I don't think Sam gives a shit, but it's Tara, and at the end she's still like, I prefer the Babadook or whatever. It's that idea that they're embracing the term elevated horror, which is maybe I'm a toxic fan, but I think elevated horror is just a way of people saying, I don't want to talk about horror as horror. I want to say mine has prestige behind it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's a total invented by film critics who don't really want to admit they like horror movies.
I saw someone call the new It elevated horror, and that term has no meaning if the new It is fucking elevated horror. No offense, I enjoy the new It.
I love it, but what is elevated horror about? Honestly, Stephen King in general.
What is elevated about The Witch? It's a fucking folk horror movie. It's very good.
It's
I
great.
don't know why
Yeah.
it's elevated. I don't know.
What is
Why
elevated about any specific horror movie? They're all just horror movies.
Do I have to take that label back? Like, if I talk about Repulsion, is that like, oh, that was one of the early elevated horror films that
This is
all
like
the
the
other
bullshit
horror
where there's
films
like, I don't know if you know this, with fantasy, there's like low fantasy and high fantasy.
Yeah, like low fantasy would be your pulp, like your Conan the Barbarian type.
Yeah,
stories.
it's like, no, it's all fucking with dragons and shit. Shut the fuck up.
Game of Thrones ain't better than Conan.
And God, that just means you aren't very good at reading what is behind the meaning of a film. Like a schlocky B-grade horror movie can have just as much to say about a prestige like Ari Aster movie or something like that. And guess what? The people making the prestige ones have the same opinion as what I just said.
Yeah, you can't tell me Ari Aster didn't watch like fucking Nightmare on Elm Street and go, pretty good. It throws me off, especially considering they set up in the movie that Tara is proud that she's a horror fan, because Ghostface kind of eggs her on like, oh, your mom mentioned you were a big horror fan, and she, you guys bonded over that. She's like, yeah, she's happy about that. That's like, oh, cool. I'm with me and my mom. Yeah, that's it. That's kind of my identity. And then she goes into elevated horror. It's like, what is this? What kind of horror fan is like, oh, I only appreciate movies made in like the last 3 years. I don't care about anything before that.
But it's all specific where like that stuff comes from Amber. It's that stuff is just very confused in the film. It's the one thing I didn't really care for. Only because I just don't like. I don't
now
like
50 minutes in. You bring up a point where it's like, I need to unpack this for several hours.
I know we're gonna do a commentary
what have you
for this
done?
Point.
I think that's guaranteed. Once we get Jamie to watch Scream 5 with us.
Yeah.
Can we put her in a room and force her to watch it with us for the first time? I want to hear her reaction.
Oh, that would
as
be
the
great.
movie happens.
Where she has to verbalize like everything she's experiencing.
We're dead silence. We're all in the same room, and she just has to watch Scream 5 like we're not there. Like I just want a webcam in her house. Yeah. That's all I want. I just want to experience this movie through other people.
We're not even facing the screen or anything. We have 2 chairs next to the TV. And we're just staring at her the entire time.
The way all movies should be enjoyed. That's how they should do focus groups. What did you think of the movie? I was a little creeped out by the men in black hoods who stared at me for an hour and a half.
They seemed to get really into it anytime I smiled. It made me stop smiling.
And just making fucking gorilla noises like, just so excited.
And then they kept scribbling notes down mysteriously.
This is, folks at home, this is why Mike and I aren't scientists or accredited in any fashion at all. It's a miracle we're employed, honestly.
Oh, yeah. This is also why we're not allowed lab animals anymore.
Those mice are tasty, Mike. Tasty mice.
You gotta make stew out of something. Who doesn't love stew? So I brought it back around with
nice. I see what you're doing. Folks, we could keep talking about any of the Screams for literally days. Come at me, dare me. I don't know if people at home can tell, but I'm making direct eye contact and I haven't blinked.
Oh, they can feel it.
But I think that's going to do it for our Scream 5 initial gut reactions. I really enjoyed it. I have my nitpicks because I always do. I think it's safe to say, Mike, you really enjoyed it.
Yes.
This review is coming out something like 2.5 weeks after the movie released. So maybe more than that. I don't understand time anymore. It's all been confusing since 2019. Anyways, you still have time to go see it in theaters. I'd highly recommend it. Go check it out. It's fun on the big screen to get an audience with you reacting to it. If you can do it safely, if you can find like a Vax only show, obviously, if you can go somewhere where everyone's masking up properly, highly encouraged, because we're not going to get this one, unfortunately, on streaming until, closer to the actual physical release date. But boy, it's worth checking out. Absolutely up there with the other Scream movies. Radio Silence has done a wonderful job making something that feels akin to the other Wes Craven entries without insulting or usurping what's come before. Highly recommended. Love it.
Box Office Pulp recommends Scream.
All of them.
Yeah, all of them. Even that one.
All of them. All of them. Even that one. Folks, if you've enjoyed this podcast, I hesitate to call it a mini-bop because it's going for almost an hour now because I cannot shut up. You can find more of Box Office Pulp at boxofficepulp.com or at Box Office Pulp on Twitter. We're on Facebook, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Music.
Yes, Google Podcasts and Amazon Music.
Nailed it. Fucking yes. I was going to say Google Play, but that's not right at all. I got it in the end. Anyways, you can find us all around. We also have commentary tracks for some of the movies we love. We have individual episodes where all 3 of the hosts of the show typically get together. We have mini bops like this, where maybe you only have 2 people talking about a movie. Come and check us out. We're occasionally fun. Anyways, we would love it if you listened to us and left a review. That's going to do it for tonight. Hope you had fun. Get the hell out of here. That's a wrap.
And like that, he's gone.
People are going to be so mad when they find out that there's a scene at the very end credits of Scream 5 that reveals Roman in another Ghostface mask watching the entire fucking movie. It's him on his couch wearing the mask watching the movie during Scream 3. And people are like, I don't know how to place any of this. What does it mean?
Oh, this is what he was making.
This is my design.
Kirby lives.
I can't believe we didn't get to that.
Because the entire episode would have been about Kirby at that point.
Yeah, that's fair.
This is Box Office Pulp Guy, and this has been a Pulp Podcast production. Now please, 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 put a gun in my mouth and pull the trigger and say goodnight.
And now, on with the show.